And we are live. Hi everyone. Welcome to another IG Live with Giant Step. Just waiting for some people to join. Hope everyone has had a good week. And TK has joined. Great. Okay. 1 second. I'm just going to bring her on. Just waiting for TK to join me. And there she is. Hello. Hold on. Let's just. Hi. Are you just you're pausing? Okay. TK is just pausing for a second. Yeah. You're pausing. Yeah. You pause. So I don't know if you need to get into a better room with Wi-Fi, with a better Wi-Fi. You look great though. Just waiting for TK's connection to just get a little bit better. Thank you for all joining. Seeing a lot of people joining at the moment. Yeah. She does look like art. It's a beautiful picture. Okay, so we're going to have you join again. The good news is she is definitely on time. So that's great. Thank you for all joining. Very excited about this Instagram Live with the amazing TK Wanda. We're going to get into her story and also what she's been doing over the pandemic, because obviously a lot has been going on, and she has been very, very busy. So I'm excited to hear about, well, I know a lot of the stuff she's been doing, but we're excited to talk about it, and get you guys involved too. Just waiting for her to join again. Yeah, London Bambi says, we love TK Wanda. She is just amazing. Yeah, I think we will agree with you there. Okay, TK, just waiting for you to join back. Seems to be having a few technical difficulties. Should let you know that the IG Lives that we've been doing, stretching back to in December, we're actually going to be releasing these as podcasts. They've been very popular, and we've had a lot of great guests, everybody from Babel Gilberto, Giles Peterson, Arthur Baker, and various other great personalities and people who I call really thought leaders and tastemakers within music and culture. So it's great having that as a podcast, because then more people can enjoy it, because the Instagram Live is pretty instantaneous, hence Instagram. So I'm just waiting for TK to rejoin, and she will be joining imminently, hopefully. Before we do that, anyone have any questions for me, or questions you want me to ask? Feel free to write the comments. You have one with Ron. Here we go. So view requests. So we're gonna go live again with TK, and hopefully this will work better.
Hi.
There we go.
Sorry about
perfect.
that.
That's okay. That's okay. It was like a photograph of you. You looked fantastic, but you weren't moving.
Right. How are you, Morris?
I'm good. The crazy thing is, and I think this goes to show that times are a changing for the better.
Yes.
Is we actually saw each other in person last night. That was
Yes, it was excellent. That's a great thing about New York.
Yeah, but I mean, that it's the first time I've actually said that to somebody in a long time. We went out. We were both out at it was the reopening of Jimmy's the top of the St. James Hotel. I was
Yes,
there, and you were there, and
yes.
it was just so great seeing you in person, and just seeing people in person, and giving people hugs, and it was lovely. Did you have a good time?
I did. I had a wonderful time. I was saying that it was the first time I had been out in New York for over a year. And I ran into quite a few people, and it was great seeing friends, you included. So it was a beautiful night.
Yeah, great, awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you're joining me on this Instagram live. And you know, we obviously we don't have a lot of time, and your story is incredible, and also you know what you do you know in your life is also incredible. So I really want to spend most of the time just talking about that. So you know, as always, you know, my first question is, you know, your beginning, and you have a very unique beginning.
Mhm.
You are a twin.
I am.
um,
Hi, Cipriana. I think she's watching.
she is watching.
Yes.
And so my first question is, who's older?
Cipriana. She's 15 minutes
Uh,
older.
15 minutes. And does she
Yeah.
pull rank on you for that 15 minutes
No, she
ever?
never does. I was just real reluctant to come out to the world, so I let her investigate first. She said it was okay, and I came out.
Perfect. Perfect. So, you grew up in Baltimore?
Grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and lived there for most of my childhood, then moved to DC, and then moved to New York. I talked about my past often with my sister. We had a very difficult childhood filled with violence and a lot of love. We had a father who was very abusive and violent, and the most incredible mother that we could ever hope to ask for. And so having that dichotomy of relationships between our parents, it was it was scary as a kid. We lived in fear. And that's another reason why my sister and I are so close, because I felt in a way that we were each other's therapy, because we always had someone to talk to. We could always talk to each other. We were going through the same thing, and it was very tumultuous, but going through those obstacles made it easier because I had my best friend by my side. So once we left Maryland and my mother left our father, we moved to DC. And I really had a great love and passion for reading and writing. When we would get in trouble when we were younger, our father would make us write book reports. And for me, that wasn't a punishment, but I never told him that because I wanted him to think that he
He would have
punished.
changed, yeah, he would have changed the
Yeah.
punishment, yeah.
If he knew that, I loved it. I loved reading, I loved writing, and that's how I have a great passion for writing because of reading. And I started writing. So I wrote everything, short stories, poetry. The funny thing is that once I started spoken word poetry, when I came to New York, and that transitioned into rapping, I wasn't allowed to listen to rap music growing up. I wasn't permitted. So I find great irony that I'm a lyricist today, but I had a great passion for learning how to
And
rap.
so what were you reading as a child? What were the books that really
I
inspired
loved
you, you were drawn to?
horror. Horror. I was a huge Stephen King fan and Dean R. Koontz. So I would read these horror books because I kind of liked escaping into these worlds. Any book that I could escape into a world that was different or had supernatural elements to it, I really endured. Like my
And
favorite childhood film is The Never Ending Story. So.
right, and how old were you when you were reading Stephen King? Because that's
Oh,
pretty
I
intense.
was young. I was a voracious reader, and I'm not sure what level I was reading at a young age, but I was reading a lot. I come from the family where my mom, she was the breadwinner for the family, and our father was a stay-at-home dad. So every day when she came home from work or if she was attending a university, she would read to us every night. And then eventually, when we were old enough, we would read to her, but we would do it every single night before we went to bed. And then I was just reading all day. So I think at a very young age, I was reading on a much higher grade level, but I'm not sure which grade.
And that was your escape. That was escaping the situation that you were in. And
Yes.
you guys kept it to yourself. What was you?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
It was confusing because, our father made threats. He threatened us if we said anything that he would hurt our mother and he would hurt us. And it's a big secret for children to keep for
it's
years.
huge. Yeah,
Um, and we went through this for 12, 13 years. Um, but we had each other. And that's why I always say that I know that I came out on the other side, the woman I am, because of my sister and because of my beautiful mom. But we didn't tell her. And I think a lot of people may have, I always feel the need to kind of stamp, put a seal stamp of approval on my mom, because some people don't understand when you go through abuse like that. They'll be like, your mom didn't know? She didn't know at
right.
all?
Yeah,
It's like, no, she wasn't home. She was making money for the family. She was supporting us. And our father had two sides to him, and anyone who knows someone, and he also had mental issues. He was diagnosed as a schizophrenic. He was actually in an institution for a while. My sister and I, mental institution, and my sister and I visited him, and I always compare it to The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If you've seen that movie,
yeah,
that's what it
yeah.
felt like visiting him as a kid. But she didn't know, and we didn't say anything until we were much older. And by then, she had already left him. And I
Right,
remember she said to us, "Why didn't you say anything?" We're like,
right,
"Mom, we didn't want him to hurt you." So,
right.
yeah.
But when we were talking earlier this week, you were also saying that there was a side of your father where that he was extremely protective of you guys as well. So there was this
Yes.
constant conflict of, and I think that's part of probably his illness, the schizophrenia. But he was also your protector in many ways too. Yeah,
Yes, and that's why it was also very confusing, because he could be very loving and funny and friendly and smart. Morris, I would say that he was super talented in learning things. Like he taught himself how to play piano. He taught himself how to play to fix cars. He was really great at math. But he grew up in the streets in Philly. He had a very difficult life. He was in jail. He lived on the streets, and I know that obviously had a huge impact on his adulthood. And but I always say, you can't let your past control your future. At some point, you have to take control of that, and you can, and it's within your capacity to do so. I think my father never really held on to that philosophy, and for someone who was so naturally gifted, it was quite sad to see. But he really did push us to work hard and to pursue our dreams. So I always appreciated that about him. But it was just incredibly confusing to see this side that's quite loving, and
yeah.
then this other side that was the complete opposite.
Yeah, especially being young and you don't really understand illnesses like that at such a young age. It's just that's my father, and it's so. I mean, I think
Yes.
it's incredible that you guys have managed to come out of that, and as you said, move forward. And what an incredibly positive move forward you guys have done with your life, you and your sister. I mean, a
Thank
lot of the
you.
times when
Yes.
I talk about you, I mean, I think we also need to also mention Cipriana as well, because you are attached to the hip in many ways.
Yes, we are.
Like yeah, in so many ways. Um, so you moved to DC. You finished high school in DC, and then you went to
No,
college. Yeah.
In Maryland.
Oh, you were
So
living
I finished high school in Maryland. Then we moved
right.
to DC. Then I did a year at College Park, and then I came to New York.
And why did you come to New York?
Uh, I started to become really involved in the spoken word scene, and I knew that the spoken word scene when I came to New York was really strong. Like I used to slam at the Nuyorican Cafe in the Lower
Yep,
East
of
Side,
course. Yes.
and I I didn't know anyone, so I was always the last to go on, and this was for open mic. So I started doing a few open mics, and then I was invited to actually compete in the competition, and that for me was exciting. And this was the first time that I had actually performed poetry with music, because they had musicians and they would just play with your spoken word. And for me, I felt like that was it was like a light bulb went off when that moment happened for me on stage. And I would always have people come up to ask me if I rapped. And I said, no, no. But I was like, let me try it. I was horrible at first, Maurice. I did like every stereotypical thing that
Right.
you think about rap. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was horrible. So I gave up because I always thought writing came easy for me. And because it didn't come easy, I was disappointed. And then I was like, well, sometimes you have to put work in to get you always have to put work in to get better. So then I picked it back up. I just started practicing and going to as many open mics as I could to get practice.
And you said that you weren't listening to hip hop growing up. So did you start listening to it when you came to New York?
Yes, I
So
did.
basically, it was like once you were, then it was
Yes.
like, all right, give it to me.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to,
I
I
was
want
like,
to hear it
oh,
all. Yeah,
I
yeah.
want it all. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But what else? What other music were you listening to?
A lot of soul, because my mom is she was in a band when she was younger. My father
Oh,
has an incredible voice, and they both could sing well. And that's how I actually had a passion for music at a young age. And I would do school talent shows, and I had solos and all that. And I really enjoyed music, but I listened to a lot of soul because that was what was in the house. One of my
right.
favorite all-time artists is Stevie Wonder, which is a big reason why my name is TK Wonder, because I'm such a fan.
Ah.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, yeah. And I mean, the area of DC and sort of Baltimore, Maryland is a very famous soul music area. I mean, obviously Marvin Gaye is from
Mhm.
there. And they used to call DC Chocolate City
Yes.
for a reason, because
Yeah.
and then you had the go-go scene.
Yes. The go-go
Um,
scene's big.
I think Ramp were from Baltimore. Just an amazing area for music.
Yes.
And I think doesn't really get the kudos and the credits that it probably deserved for its contribution
Not at
to
all.
soul
I
music
agree.
and jazz as well, I would
Mhm.
say. Um, so you started you were doing the spoken word. You discovered the fact that music and spoken word could work together. You started doing a little bit of rapping. Um, was the meeting with Taylor McFerrin, was that the next stage, or was that something, because we met
Yes,
through
it
Taylor?
definitely
Yeah.
was. I met I had his ex-girlfriend is a really good friend of mine, and she introduced me to him, and it's like, oh, I have this girlfriend, she does music. And that's initially how we met and started doing music, and then we started doing shows together. And for me, that was a great experience because it was the first time I was doing shows in front of large audiences in New York as a rapper. And it was always a time that I really enjoyed because I did got a lot of experience performing shows with Taylor.
Yeah, because we did a lot of shows together back then. I mean,
We
I
did,
was
yes.
just before we started this, I was trying to remember. I mean, like I had you guys play at Central Park Summer Stage.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah,
remember who you were?
yes, Raphael Sadiq.
Raphael Sadiq, that's it. You were
hmm
opening up for Raphael Sadiq, which
I
was
opened for Erica in
you
Miami.
opened up for Erykah Badu for us in Miami
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
Delano, when I think
Yep.
you guys must have played at 9 o'clock and we had to wait about 2.5 hours
Yes.
for Erykah to come on.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. She was in
Well
the
worth the wait.
elevator. She was in the elevator for an hour. Yeah, I was
Oh.
actually standing outside of the elevator, and I'm like, she can't be in the elevator. No, no, she's in the elevator. I go, no. And so I had to go up to her room, and she was in the
Yeah.
bath in her room.
It was
She'd
definitely
fallen.
a memorable night.
Oh yeah, she fell in love with the bathtub in her room at the Delano that night, um, and then we did a lot of club shows with you. I think
Yes.
New Blue, and yeah, it's great times.
hmm
And you also did a lot of touring in Europe as well, as an artist. Talk a
Yes.
little bit about that.
I met this really talented composer by the name of Kirill Tchaikovsky. So he actually composes for ballet and for films, but he also has another side where he's an artist and he does music. So he works with a few artists, and I'm one of the lead singers. So and rappers. So we go on tour together, and we've been everywhere from Northeast Africa to the Solomon Islands to Serbia,
Oh,
Albania.
wow.
I mean, everywhere in Eastern Europe, a lot of places in Western Europe, Portugal. It's been really incredible. I performed in front of the biggest crowds of my musical career. 150,000 people I performed at in front of in Poland's um, festival called Woodstock. And I was so nervous. I was so nervous, but I have it in my head. I try to psych myself out when I get on stage by pretending that it's not that many people. And then, but once I get in the zone, I'm fine. But it was nerve-wracking as an artist being in front of that many people, but I love it. It's just such amazing energy. The music festival scene in Europe is quite different than the States.
Do you get more nervous? So you get more nervous playing in front of large crowds than you do
I get
playing in
more
front of very,
nervous being, nope, I get more nervous playing in front of intimate crowds than I
right,
do big
because
ones.
you could actually see their faces and
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
But my thing with performing is I love connecting with people and looking at them. So
right,
I always think it's a good thing to have nerves because it means that you
yeah,
want to do well. So
yes, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, if people are not, if an artist is nonchalant, then it's like they're not really taking, you know, taking it in of, the experience that they're going to deliver. I mean,
right.
yeah. So, music is something you continue. We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk more about music later because there's some
Sure.
exciting things that you're doing. But um, let's talk a little bit about fashion because that is, you are such a, multifaceted artist. Fashion is also a big part of your career. Um,
Yes.
so, tell us a little bit about your fashion career
Sure.
and how that evolved.
It evolved with my sister, Cipriana. We started doing a lot of street style photography together. And when we attended our first fashion week in New York, we received a lot of press from Fashion Week because street style photography, not right now, but it's quite huge during Fashion Week. So we received a
Hmm.
lot of press. And then it kind of just evolved from that point. I had no idea that I would be involved in fashion, that I would have a career in it. It was not something I ever thought about doing. I always enjoyed fashion. I loved styling myself because I think of fashion as a way to express yourself. It's a fun way to express
Yep.
yourself.
Yeah.
And but I really enjoyed the element of working with my sister. I think the best part of having a fashion career is that I get to work with my best friend and my sister. For me, that's the most exciting. And we worked with a lot of major brands, a lot of couture brands, and we've been really fortunate and had some really incredible opportunities.
And when you were growing up, were there any sort of brands that you aspired that you then ended up working with, or
Um,
um,
no, no, I believe me, it wasn't on my radar. That's why I said becoming involved in fashion was not something I ever expected or even thought of. It just happened. But I'm a firm believer in being open to doors that you may have not considered, but that could work for you, and you walk through them. So that's always been my philosophy about opportunities.
and I think one of the amazing things about you and your sister in the fashion world is you've been very vocal and outspoken about diversity and
Yes,
issues and put those to the forefront because fashion, it is woke now, but,
yes,
let's
right.
be real, like,
Yes,
all this stuff has been
yes.
going on from time immemorial, and I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
people are waking up. But you
Right.
guys have never feared, speaking up about it. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that because I think it's very important that people
Sure.
hear your thoughts
Right.
about it.
So the moment that we began fashion, we were always speaking up on issues of diversity and inclusivity. We knew how important it was, and it still is, and that representation that was severely lacking. Seeing Black women that have our hair type specifically was not a common thing that you would see in fashion at all. My sister was actually a professional model years ago, and she had horrible incidents where people wanted her to change her hair because the type of texture that we have is not seen as like commercially
Yeah,
attractive.
yeah,
It's all these stereotypes and negativity attached to certain textures of Black hair, and getting over those perceptions and speaking about them and not being afraid to be public going forward with those discussions. We did a TED Talks on diversity in the industry, and one of the things I brought up was hair. Another topic we brought up was colorism.
hmm
As a Black woman, our dark-skinned queens aren't receiving the representation that they deserve, and it's still an obstacle in the industry, tackling those issues and discussing them. I think I'm glad that more people are aware and they're talking about representation and diversity. However, it shouldn't be treated as a trend. I think,
hmm
now everybody has a cause that they want to support, and sometimes people are doing these things because it looks cool to be trendy and to have a cause, but you have to be in it for the long run, because change doesn't
Correct.
happen overnight. It doesn't change from a
Correct.
year to 2 years.
Yeah.
You have to be in it for the long run.
Yeah, instead of giant steps, it's baby steps, and we've got to keep taking those baby steps. I mean, and I'm not going to mention some of these brands, but I've seen some of the more recent campaigns, and it feels like they've just got, we need dark skin models in our thing. It's
Yes.
like it's
Like you have a
very
quota to be met.
right. It seems very sort of knee jerk rather than authentic, and I just hope that this trend, this thinking continues, and as you said, they're in it for the long run. Um, you
Right.
know,
Because I always say that it doesn't matter how people get to this point, even if they just started to be vocal about certain issues, that's great. But just know that it's longevity involved when you're campaigning, when you're advocating for these issues.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned hair, and
Mhm.
I do want to talk more about hair because it's and I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about the Crown Act, which was passed
Yes. Hmm.
in, I think, California in January 2019. And the Crown Act
Yes.
stands for Create a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. Um, just
You
talk a
did your
little bit about.
research.
I did my
Right.
research. Of course, I did my research.
We talked about this earlier. I'm glad.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because when we were having a conversation before about, and I was talking about the Crown Act, I think a lot of people aren't aware that there's still discrimination at the workplace for natural hairstyles. Even at schools, children are being penalized for having natural hair, or or having locks. And this is a discussion that still needs to be had because it's affecting people monetarily, um, and mentally. I know for myself, when I started to become natural and I started my natural hair journey, I received a ton of derogatory comments. And this is not on social media, where you can just block and delete the negativity. This was in person. People, strangers, were not afraid to come up to me and tell me that my hair was ugly, that I should fix it. Why did my hair look like that? I'd be so much prettier if I didn't have it. And
thanks for
it
the
was
advice.
constant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. But this was something I dealt with anytime I was in public. So anytime I left my house, I was dealing with derogatory comments about my hair. I had reached a point where I was letting it affect my confidence, and the way that I viewed my own strands, until I reached a point in my life where I was telling myself, why was I listening to these type of negative people? Why
Right.
was I letting them control the positive way I thought about myself? And you can't have any control over what someone else says or what they think, but you 100% can have control over how you process that, how you react to it. So once I started thinking along those lines, my whole perception changed. And it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It was really liberating.
Right. And then, something else that we talked about was when people think that they're being, friendly and they say, "Can I touch your hair?"
Right.
Which must be just,
Yes.
yeah,
Hey, I would at least, I think the question in itself is rude. It doesn't matter how friendly or kind someone is or friendly when someone asks that question. They don't know it's rude because, at this point in my life, I've reached a point where I'm just glad they asked because a lot of people will just come up and touch my hair without even
right,
asking. At least if
right,
someone asks, I can be like, no.
right,
So, but I think there's still this curiosity that comes with natural hair that's not up for me as a Black woman to sate. I don't have to sate that curiosity. First off, it's a pandemic and we have a virus going around. Why would I want you all up in my hair touching it? Secondly, I have no idea where your hands have been. Morris, do you
right.
know how many times I've been
Yeah.
out and seen people not wash their hands?
Oh, yeah,
So I don't want that on my strands.
yeah,
Thirdly, I think a lot of times too, people don't understand that touching someone's hair is touching a body part. I remember my
yeah,
boyfriend had this great quote, and he said that if someone touched your breast or your butt, they would be offended. Hair
yeah,
is the same thing. It's on my body. It's a part
yeah,
of me,
yeah,
and I take great care of it.
yeah,
And I know that some people don't understand that, but it's not for them to understand. So,
yeah. I mean, it's very, it's just very interesting, and I'm so glad that you're first of all that you're proud of your crown, and you're vocal about it as well.
yes.
I think that's very, very important. Um, let's talk a little bit about your sunglasses line that you just did, because not only is it a product that's come out, but obviously there's a cause behind it as well. So
Yes.
I think it'd be very important for you to just tell everybody about this new
Sure.
this new line that you've done.
So my sister Cipriana and I teamed up with Apursuit Eyewear to first they approached us about doing a collection capsule, and then we inquired if we could design the sunglasses, and we're really grateful for this opportunity that the brand gave us creative freedom. So we did everything. We shot the campaign with this amazing photographer, creative named Terry Gates. We work with him often, and he shot all of our photography. We designed the sunglasses from the shapes to the colors. My sister designed these, came up with the idea of doing a hammer and nail style because our father was always working with tools when we were younger and fixing things. And he was trying to teach us to fix things as well. And but we thought the idea of the nail and hammer would be great. And I came up with the figurative sense of what those mean, a figurative meaning, I mean. So the nail and hammer are tools that you use to build things, and it represents building more kindness, more tolerance, more acceptance in the world. Um, and once we came up with those designs, the brand finalized it, and then we approached this incredible foundation called the Loveland Foundation, and they focus on providing support to communities of color with a particular focus on therapy for Black women and girls. And this is really something that's really important to Cipriana and I, because we know just how important therapy is for Black women and girls, especially for us coming from the type of background that we came from. Um, I always say that I can't imagine a child going through that alone. I was very blessed because I had my sister and we had each other. That's why I always say I think we were each other's therapy because we always had someone we could talk to about what was going on. A lot of young women or girls don't have that. And I think that that's a wonderful, incredible cause. So that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to team up with them because we felt like we also had a personal connection as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think mental illness and the the wonders of therapy. We spend a lot of time talking about fixing aches and pains in our body, but we
Right.
spend less time fixing the aches and pains in our minds.
Mind.
And the two are symbiotic. Not
Yes,
only do we need to be
definitely.
exercising every day to stay healthy, our bodies,
Hmm.
our hearts, we need to exercise our minds to and do gymnastics with our mind to
Yes,
keep it in shape as well. And
exactly.
unfortunately, in this country, it's very expensive to get medical help.
It.
So
Mhm.
I think it's an amazing cause to give people, a way, especially young African American women, to get the chance to have that help. If people want to contribute to this, obviously by buying the sunglasses, how can they
Mhm.
do? Where can they find it?
They can just go on my page, or they can go to my twin sister's page, and just we have a link in our bios that they can click on.
Right. And you were saying $10 from every sale goes to the
Ten
foundation,
deal,
right?
$10 from every sale goes to the Loveland Foundation. Yes.
Right, which is pretty, which is a lot of that can really add up quite quickly. That's
Yes. Mhm.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Um, so I'd like to talk a little bit about sort of like lockdown because you know, and how it was for you, and then within lockdown, so many things were going on. So
Yes.
if we could talk about sort of like the pandemic for you, and then we can get into
Mhm.
sort of like the different things. Um,
Sure. Uh, I remember the last day that I was out before quarantine began. It was March 15th. I was at a friend's birthday party. It was an
and your
intimate
friend
dinner.
was, and who was your friend?
Legendary
Yeah,
Damon.
there you go. You can't just say a friend. Come on, give David some props there.
Oh, yes, of course. Legendary Damon. He's an incredible, incredible
It was his
person.
21st birthday, right?
Yes, his 21st
Yeah, yeah,
birthday.
okay.
And we were all joking that this was going to be the last day in a long time that we'd be out. And it was foreboding. So I quarantined for 3 months. I didn't leave the house with the exception of protesting. Um, and so it was scary times, who would ever thought that, we all be on lockdown, not be able to leave your house without a mask. Just shows you how crazy the world can turn in the drop of a hat. And after 3 months of quarantining, well, 4 months actually, I went to Nevada because my mom and stepdad lived there. And it was really relaxing. I felt really stifled in New York during quarantine. I felt creatively
Sure.
stifled. So that's why I was thinking, oh, what can I do? Because when I record music, I don't have a home studio. I mean, now I do, but during that time I didn't. So I was like, what can I do? I just started writing. So and drawing, and I found that I could draw. So I was illustrating cartoons to all the issues I like to talk about, like equality, diversity, police brutality, and I was making illustrations on these topics. I submitted the first time I ever submitted for a writing grant, and I was one of 10 winners, and it was a really proud moment for
Oh
me.
wow.
And my essay, which I wrote on racial microaggressions that I experienced as a Black woman, was published in the magazine. So it had Yara Shahidi on the cover, and Janelle Monáe, and Mary J. Blige, and it was called Cultured Magazine. And that, for me, was a very proud moment.
So talk a little bit about the topic that you wrote the essay on. What?
I talked about racial microaggressions I experienced. Anywhere from being in a store and a white patron is in front of me, I mean behind me, and I'm
And they,
ignored for the
yeah,
white patron, or if I'm flying first class. My sister and I dealt with this a lot because we worked with a lot of brands, and we were flown for work events first class, and dealing with staff on airplane, flight attendants not believing that we were in first class,
yeah.
or
I
even
think you were in the wrong
customers.
seat. I think you were in the wrong seat.
Or
Yeah.
even, or just only asking you, oh, can I see your ticket number? Your
Right.
ticket,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even customers standing that aren't in first class that feel the need to tell us like, oh, this is the first class line,
Right.
economy's over there. And
Yeah.
like, no, we're in the right line. Just, I
Right.
mean, little things like that that actually add up to big things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean that. Yes. I've yes. I've seen. You know. I mean,
Or, you know, the
I've
common one of being in a store and constantly being approached like, oh, can I get this shoe size? Yeah, I don't work here. I don't even have a name tag on. I have like sunglasses on, a purse and a bag, and those aren't clothes. You know,
right.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Or being asked when you go to a store, can I help you? You know,
Hmm.
in
Yes.
other words,
Hmm.
you're in the wrong place. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you discovered the love of illustration. Do you
Mhm.
draw with pencil or do you
I
use
draw
a?
with pencil. And my sister, Cipriana, she is an amazing artist. She's incredible. She does her medium as more real life. So she is incredible. So I think some of those genes passed off to me, and I just found them. But yes, I draw with pencil on paper, and then I scan the images onto my iPad, and that's how I color all the images on the iPad digitally. But I can draw all the illustrations.
Wow. And you know, we talked a little bit about your writing. You forgot to say that you actually wrote a novel when you were
When I
younger.
was a
Oh, right.
kid, yes.
Yes, yes.
It was a religious supernatural book. I have no idea what I was talking about, but I was quite thrilled that I wrote a book.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What was it called?
I don't remember what it's called. I still have it. It's like in my closet somewhere. But yeah, it was, I just remember it was like a religious supernatural thriller. Yeah.
Sounds like
Dan,
what?
what's the book that I'm thinking of? The first author's name is Dan. Like Tom Hanks made a movie
Oh,
out of
right.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
if you know what
uh,
that. Yeah, so it was
yeah.
like a lot of religious elements and yeah, supernatural. I don't know.
And you know, a quote that you that I saw you put in your, you know, in something that you sent me was from Nina Simone, um, and
Hmm.
which was an artist's duty is to reflect the times, and I
Yes,
think that's very very poignant for the next thing we're going to talk about.
right.
Um, that you were in, well, you were not inspired, but you felt with what had been happening with George Floyd and all the other Black Lives Matter, and then
Hmm.
personal experiences for you and your sister.
Right,
You
and Breonna
you put
Taylor.
yeah, you put out a piece of music, which is coming out actually May the 18th, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Talk a little bit about that and how that came about. Um,
Okay. I wrote it last year, and I collaborated with this really amazing producer and artist named Kari Martin, and I wrote to the track, but it was really important for me to focus on police brutality. I always say that a lot of times Black women are left out of the conversations when it pertains to police brutality. And as a Black woman that has experienced it, and my twin sister, Cipriana, has experienced it as well. She was wrongfully incarcerated here in New York City, and she sued the police department and won a settlement. I was overseas, and a police officer, airport security, singled me out for a strip search. I was the only person of color on the flight, and a male police officer was attempting to conduct it. I knew that that wasn't right, so I put my foot down and said, I'm not going to do it until a woman police officer is here. And he still refused to leave, and even when she arrived, but I refused to do the strip search until he left. And then the U.S. Embassy became involved. But these are just two incidents that we've had dealing with police brutality. We've run into police brutality quite often in Maryland, incidents with hate crimes, seeing a Black man almost die by being beaten by state troopers. So it was
you
really
saw
important for
that.
me.
You that's something
Yes,
that
we
you
were really
saw.
young. Our father testified in the case on the man's behalf. So these are things
And did
that I've
anything and did anything happen, or was it just like your father, like, you know, risked his risked danger doing that, and then the case was thrown out, or do you remember if?
I don't, I was young, so I don't remember all the details, but I do remember, I don't know if he tried to intervene or not. I mean, I don't think he would have, because he probably would have,
Right, would
not
have
probably, he
shot.
would
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
Right. But he definitely did testify on his behalf when the person sued the police. But, you know, that's jarring seeing something like that when you're younger. But Cipriana and we'd always been aware of racism at a very young age, because when we were maybe about 10, 11, we were crossing the street and a pickup truck full of young white men attempted to run us off the road and called us niggers. Our father waited
This is in Maryland. This is
in
in
Maryland,
Maryland.
and Baltimore County. And our father waited on that road every day for a week until, with us in the back seat, seeing if we could see the car, if they were in the neighborhood. And we did see them on the seventh day. My father chased after them, followed them to their home, called the police. Nothing was done because one of the young men's relative was a police officer. So we have unfortunately, a lot of experience with police brutality. So that was why it was really important for me to address it in the song. I shot the music video in Vegas, in the desert. My sister was a cinematographer and we co-directed it together. And that was another really pertinent part of this project. I wanted Black women directing it, and also Black women that experienced police brutality. So I think what my sister contributed was really amazing, and I'm really, really proud of this project.
Right. And the song is called Fuck Peace.
Fuck peace,
Correct?
yes.
Yes.
It's about the hypocrisy of asking Black and brown communities to be peaceful when they're brutalized by police.
Ah, okay. And it's coming up May the 18th, and
May 18th, yes.
it's going to be available on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple. And
Yes.
it's your record label, right?
Yes, it's my baby. I'm putting it out with the producer, so it's our collaboration that we're putting out. We're releasing it together, and this is the first time as an artist in all the years I've been doing music that I've released this with my own hands. So it's
fantastic.
really exciting for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the fact that we live in a digital age, that it's easier to do things like that because we have the platforms. We don't need to spend money printing CDs or vinyl, or manufacturing, I should say, and then trying to distribute and getting in the stores. You can get on all those platforms, and with you guys having the network and the social following, you can then promote it. So it's a much more, I would say, democratic way of getting yourself heard, using the power of social media to do that, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
And
do you know that song called "Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves"?
Absolutely.
That's what I think of.
Absolutely. Annie Lennox and Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
Exactly. But you were too young to know that song when it came out.
I know. I know a lot of music.
Yeah. I actually was around when that song came out. But that actually introduced Aretha Franklin to a lot of white people who didn't know her.
Fan base.
Created a whole new fan base, and kind of the same time that Tina, did her comeback with a whole new fan base as well.
So two of my favorite artists that I am inspired by. So these are two artists I look at live performance footage before I perform. It's Tina Turner and Rage Against the Machine. These are two artists that I always look at their live performance. Well, yes, but Tina, she has a rock side as well, and Rage Against the Machine is a rap band. So but they have incredible live performances, and they are two of by far my favorite artists I get inspired for live performances.
Did you see the Tina Turner documentary?
I did. I thought it was incredible, and yes,
fantastic. Yeah. I mean,
and
go ahead.
Yeah, just hearing her speak about the abuse that she went through and how she overcame that and how she didn't want it to define her life. I think a lot of times too, when people have trauma, sometimes they might let it define who they are, and it doesn't have to. You're in control of that. I mean, you're not in control of how other people define you, but you're in control of how you define yourself. Yeah. So I love that she was able to do that.
Yeah, and it was great that she really sat down and she told her story
Hmm.
in a very, very honest way. I mean, you know, the movie was great, but this was her actually telling the story. And the thing that I found so poignant was when she decided to leave Ike, it was like she left everything. You
Everything.
know, like
She
she
just,
left
I
with
want my
no
name.
money.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. No money, no nothing. You know, some people, some friends helped her, and she, you know, was in a safe environment, and then she basically got on with it and became a superstar. I mean, crossed
Yes.
over beyond, you know.
And
Um,
she said for her, her biggest hits didn't occur until she was in her 40s. So I love this messaging behind her saying this because it's never too late to pursue your
yeah,
dreams. I think,
yeah,
especially in this industry and entertainment, it's all about youth and how young you are, and
yeah,
but there's
yeah,
accomplishments to be had at any age. I just hate that
yeah,
narrative in the
yeah.
industry, and I really like that she spoke about that.
I agree, but my all-time favorite. I mean, I love a lot of the music, and I love a lot of music she did with Ike. But my all-time favorite was River Deep, Mountain High, and it's
Yes.
surprisingly when they were saying it wasn't a hit, it was
Yes,
like,
I was surprised by that. Yes, I thought it was a hit. Yeah, it's an
yeah, I
incredible
think
piece of work.
it was actually a hit in England, where I'm from. So that's why I
Okay.
thought it was a hit everywhere because I mean, we loved the Wall of Sound and Phil Spector, who passed away and had his own demons, but his musical production, especially back then, was just. I mean, it's like that was done in mono, but it feels like they have 300 musicians like all playing out of one tiny microphone to create that
Hmm.
incredible wall of sound, which
Yes.
yeah, amazing, amazing. So what's next for you guys? I mean,
My sister and I are working on a project. I guess I can't really talk about it, but we're super excited about it. It's involved in the entertainment industry. And I'll be going in hard and promoting a single that's coming out soon. And my sister and I as well are collaborating on a few things. I don't know if I should talk about it
right?
just
No,
yet.
you don't
But
need to talk about anything. Yeah,
yeah, but I think music wise, I'm really looking forward because it's been a while since I released something as well. And Also to continuing this conversation on talking about diversity, inclusivity, and police brutality. I think it's really important. And, I never get tired of talking about these issues because they're really imperative for me.
right. Yeah, I think that the George Floyd case was it wasn't the solution. It was the start of accountability,
Yes.
and accountability can lead to actual change. Do you feel
Hmm.
optimistic about where things are going now? I know there's a lot of
Um,
work to be done
I'm
still, but
always Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. I'm always hopeful. I mean, growing up, and I had mentioned before, dealing with violence, I always tried to see the silver lining in things. I uh, implement that philosophy with everything in my life, including social justice and issues on equality. I'm hopeful, but at the same time, too, every time I wake up, seems like there's a new story of someone being
right.
shot or murdered by police. I think also, too, changing this narrative of saying police killings, police aren't above murder or being called murderers. These are murders that are occurring right now. It's not killings, and they cannot be justified. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's just very disheartening when you get a positive verdict, not positive, but the right verdict
right.
in a
Yes.
case, and then the next day in another state, the
In the
same
same
thing
breath,
happens.
which is
Um,
what happened with George on the
yeah,
day of George
yeah,
Floyd's verdict. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
We're almost out of time, but is there anything else you want to say? You
I would
want to talk about?
actually like to ask if anyone had any questions because I
Sure.
saw some pop up and I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to see any.
Anybody have any
If
questions,
anyone has a
TK?
question, feel free. I can maybe talk about my favorite show moment real quickly before we
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah.
I opened for Sting in France, and I'm a huge Sting fan. And my sister asked me if I could get a photo with him, and I said I wouldn't do it because he's probably already, constantly being asked if he can get a photo. But someone in my band member who's the violinist was a big fan, went up to him, and he was so kind and sweet. So I walked up to the side of them and just stood there. And then Sting points to me and he's like, "This is who I want to take a photo with." And I was like, "Okay." So I took a photo and then I sent it to my sister. I was like, "That's who I got a photo with." I was the best day because we performed and it went well. And then we got to see his concert and they kept saying, "Do you want to stay for the whole show?" I was like, "Of course. What kind of question is that?" So that was a really fun and memorable moment in music for me. Yeah.
Well, he's got good taste. So,
Yeah.
that's
What's the name of the album again? Oh, it's not an album, it's a single release and it's called Fuck Peace. So it'll be out on May 18th.
and we can say that on
So
Instagram as well.
is that all your real hair? Yes. The number one question that I always get about my hair. Yes. I still remember seeing. Oh, Cipriana said she still remembers receiving that photo.
Well, I mean, this has been incredible. I'm really grateful that you, first of all, agreed to do this, and also that you were so generous in sharing your really incredible journey, because I think it's just important to talk about this because we don't know what other people are dealing with their own personal struggles, and when they see someone like you and your sister, it's such a huge inspiration to other people, and to let people know that you can make out of adversity, you can actually make such progress and positivity. And I'm always so happy when I see you guys in newspapers and magazines, and I just very proud to know you. So
Thank you
it's
so
been an
much.
absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see you again in person, which should be very, very soon. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I'm proud to know you, and
yeah,
I've known you over the years, and
yeah.
you have always been an inspiration. So this was a
Thank
true
you.
honor for me today.
Oh, I'm blushing.
Okay. Oh, thank you for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you everyone for joining. And
Yes, thank you,
we will
everyone.
see you soon. Take
Okay.
care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.